Now we're going to make a nice set of arms for the Little Bear chair. These arms are just like the arms I make for the big rocker. I'm very partial to the design. What I like is this nice curve on the inside, the fact that it rounds over here and is crowned to out here, fits the hand nicely, and I can just see a little thumb in this little hollow right there. Very functional arm, but one that is, I think, very nice and elevates the look of the chair. One of the important things is the sweep of the arm down from the back leg, flowing toward the pedestal here. All right, to get that sweep, there are some things that need to be done. One is I'm going to cut 6 degrees off of the bottom of the front bottom of the blank here, the arm blank, and that will cause it, instead of sitting flat, to raise up and move toward the back leg. Now, I'm going to cut 6 degrees off of the front bottom of each of the boards. And the measurement there is 3 inches. So 3 inches from the front, you need to put a line and then set your sliding bevel to 6 degrees. And then find that point right there and draw that line. Now, I've got the bandsaw set up so that it will make this cut, and then all I have to do is load the other one up and make the other cut, and then we'll be ready to go to fit the arms. Let's go to the bandsaw. This jig here, this 6-degree jig, there are separate video instructions how to make this in the video package. So if you look for the chapter on making the 6-degree jig, it'll be a big help. So I've put a little stop block here on the 6-degree jig, and I'm using my fence, and all I'm doing is I am lining up this line to cut on right here. And if I move my fence in and out, then I can get it to line up, and so now I can cut the 6 degrees off. I'm just going to push the jig itself against the fence and push it all the way through, kind of like you would use a tapering jig or a taper jig. One thing to watch out for is this other end down here wants to pull away sometimes from the fence. So you need to hold it and keep it against the fence as you slowly make this cut. And try not to just pop out here. Try to push it slowly all the way through. So let's get started. I'm going to take a little block plane and clean that up right there, and then I think we'll be ready to go. I might also take some CA glue and squirt it down in there just to stabilize anything that is not stable. You never know what you're going to find in a piece of wood. Every one is different. You guessed it, the 6-degree jig. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the development of this jig. I was making the first rocker. The requirement was to cut a 6-degree rip on the adder block. Well, as I made this prototype, I had no idea that almost 15 years later, it would still be the one that I use. And I made it out of some really flimsy MDF and screwed it together. And you see, there's a little bit of wobble there, and I continue to try to tighten it up. It's time for a new one. And so this is an opportunity to make a new one and to show you how to do it. First thing I needed to do was make a drawing of this piece in the middle, because it was the first thing that had to be ripped at 6 degrees. And so you can put one side against the fence, cut one leg, and the other side against the fence and cut the mirror image of the other leg. So I drew it out on a piece of plywood here and looked at the angles. One of the first questions is, how do you cut the original 6 degrees? Let's go over to the table saw, and I've got a board set up, and it's kind of ready to cut, and I'll show you how. All right, I have a jig here that it's kind of which came first, the 6-degree jig or this jig. Well, you're going to need something to hold the board at an angle while you push it through the table saw. I've got this little fence here set to 6 degrees. And so if I hold, this jig holds it on the end right here to keep it from being pushed back that way. All we need to do is put this edge against the fence, and the jig is holding the board at 6 degrees, and we're going to start a cut from this corner right here that will leave us with a 6-degree rip. I have my first 6-degree cut. Now, let me show you something. This is what's interesting, is 6 degree for one side, and then 6 degrees for the other side. Now, just to kind of finish it up, we need to make some cuts this way so that it will sit straight up, and this end and this end will be parallel. Okay, using our handy dandy no fooling around, honest to goodness drawing here, I'm able to line things up and make some marks so that I can get this end parallel with that end. It is important because you've got to use each end and have things in the right place so that you can come up with these yes lines that will be used as reference points for the lines that the center lines that you placed on the adder blocks and the back legs much earlier. Everything kind of works together, hopefully for good. Let's go to the miter saw and we'll finish it up. I have the laser lined up to make a 93-degree cut, which will match up with my blue line right there. So let's get to it. Just line it up with your line, get the laser to line up with the line that you installed, and now you're ready to cut the other end, and they'll be parallel. To start with, I milled up my stock to 1.5 inches in thickness this way. Now, you could use 2 3/4-inch thick pieces of plywood or MDF, but if you've got some thicker stock, why not just make it out of something like this? It's just a cut off of walnut that I had. So let's look at the length for this piece. Just happens to be 16 7/16. It's 2 3/4 of an inch at this end and 4 1/4 of an inch at this end. There's nothing really magical about the dimensions so much. What is magical are the angles. As I told you, I started out, I took 6 degrees off of one side. And then by the time I found these angles here so that this end could be parallel with that end, this is 87 degrees, 87 degrees. It's an acute, those are acute angles. They're less than 90. This up here is 93 degrees. It's an obtuse angle and 93 degrees there. Just the basic math is if you add up all the degrees for a polygon, a 4-sided polygon, then you come up with 360 degrees is kind of a way to check your measurements and your angles and everything. So that worked out very nicely. I made 2 fences. Each is 22 inches long and 3.5 inches in height. I made some reference marks just so that I found the center, which is always a good thing to do and install as a reference mark. And then I made these marks at the end that are 2 5/16 from the end. I did that so that I could have something to line up right here when I start to put it together. And I'm going to use glue, and I'm going to use some screws. Now we've almost got it ready to go here, and the only thing we have left to do is we're going to give ourselves some yes lines. Now the yes lines are the reference points that are going to line up with the adder block center lines and the center of the back leg. And I'm going to run these lines on down the side, and I'm going to paint them in some, I guess, fancy color, and then we'll know that they say yes. So I wonder, will this get me through the next 15 years? We'll know in 15 years. Yes, sirree. This is exciting. Brand new. Nice and sturdy, hoping that it'll last the next 15 years till I get to make a new one. We'll see. Now what we want to do is we want to identify the angle back here of the top of this pedestal to the arm stem. And we've got this 6 degrees that we've cut off here. So first thing to do is to clamp it here. And that's probably the hardest thing about this, is to clamp that on. And so we're going to get started with it. If we can clamp it on and let it run wild back here. Okay, there we go. That's solid, nice and solid. I've got a steel plate here, which is actually a scraper, and I've looked at it and it's as straight as it can be, and I've marked it as the straight side. And I'm going to hold it against the arm stem. And the arm stem has been planed flat. And now I can take a mechanical pencil. You can't do this with a regular pencil. A gel pencil might be good. Anything that's going to give a consistent line, not one that gets wider or narrower or whatever, like you would get with a wooden pencil. But now I have got this nice line here. And I've got a couple of other things to consider. Right here, I've made an X because this is going to sit against the arm stem there. That's going to help me when I cut it, help me with placement. And now I've got this line here. Now, this is the left arm. So, what I want to do is I want to read or copy that angle, and I can see it pretty well right here. I want to copy that angle. All right, now I'm going to look at it a couple of different ways, make sure that I've got it copied correctly. All right, that looks good. Now, this is what we want to take along with our arm to the table saw to make a cut. So let's go to the table saw now. We've got all the information we need, and let's see if it fits. One more piece of information. When you lay out the left arm, then you want to have an obtuse angle, greater than 90 degrees. When you lay out the angle for the right arm, it's going to be an acute angle less than 90 degrees. So this is a left arm, and hopefully this is what we need. I'm looking down and I see a line that I have drawn, which is kind of a cut line based on the blade. I just laid a long object down, drew a straight line there. That works as a line of orientation. Now, my blade has been set. It's an obtuse angle. And now we're ready to load up the wood. The X, where it butts into the arm stem, is down, and I'm going to lay this corner right on that line I drew with a Sharpie as kind of a line of orientation. That's a good place to make that cut. Looks like everything is fine. The board's a little too wide to cut all the way through. So we're going to make a cut, and we're going to break off the piece that we do cut. It's a nice test of manhood. Now we can take this to the chair and see if this fits. Keep my fingers crossed. Okay, now when we clamp the arm blank up here, then it is flush on top of the pedestal and it's flush here. So we did well. If we needed to cut it again, the angle would be only slight, and so we would go through that process again of making a line, reading it with our sliding bevel, and then going back to the table saw and making a slight adjustment in our miter gauge so that it would fit. If you have any kind of little spacing here, and it looks like I've got a little dent right there, what I'll do with that is, if it becomes something that is a part of the finished shape, which this is probably going to round over and that won't be anything to be concerned about, then I would stick a little bitty wedge in there and glue it in. Just stuff that you've got to work with all the time. But now, what I want to do is I want to identify the spot to drill our hole so that a dowel will go between the leg and our arm here. So to do that, I'm going to use a dowel center. I'm going to take it off, put the dowel center on, and then we'll find out that exact spot. We'll drill the hole. We'll be on our way to the other side. All right, so now I want to try to put it in its place, line it up, and then tap. Now I tap, tap, tap because I've got this little 3/8 inch dowel center there. And it's got a little spur at the top. And it's made a place here that shows me where I need to drill. Now I can go back over to the bench, get a brad point drill, and drill that hole, and we'll be on our way. Okay, you could use the dowel it. I'm using a little doweling plate here, something just to give it direction. But whether you use the dowelet or something like this, it needs to have a flat bottom so that it can read the angle. The angle that has been left here on the bottom front of the arm. So now I just want to drill 1 inch deep. And so I've got it set up. I've got my brad point bit there. I've got it marked here at 1 inch. I'm going to hold it down. And now I've got my hole. So the next thing is to lay out the shape of the arm, cut it at the bandsaw. We're going to actually lay that out on the bottom. I know it's called the top profile, but we're going to lay it out on the bottom down here. Draw it out, take it to the bandsaw, cut the arm, and then cut the side profile. And then we'll have something great to work with. This is the bottom of the board. We're going to cut the arm top profile on the bottom of the board. It'll be able to lay flat on the bandsaw table. So in order to do this, in order to do the layout, I am placing a square right back here at the back corner. That's where the back of the arm butts into the arm stem. And to replicate that, that's why we're using a square. So for the layout, this will push all the way back to that point. And then 1 inch from the center of our mortise right here, 1 inch from that center is where we want to make a little point right there. And that's where this is going to align. So here and there. Okay. Now I'm ready to draw it off. Take this to the bandsaw, cut it out, and then we'll be ready for the side profile. For laying out the side profile, I have a point of contact up here at this corner, and then I want this part right here to lay right across the dowel. Make sure that I've got that covered. And then I'm going to come out a little bit early when I'm actually making the cut here, because I want to have plenty left to sculpt around the pedestal. Same in the front right here. I want to come out just a little bit early. All right, so let's go to our friend the bandsaw, and look, the grain is following that very nicely. I think it's going to be a good looking arm. Let's see. Now, let's take it, put it in place, and see what we've got. All right, let's see what we've got here. Ah, yes. Nice fit. We'll go ahead, put a screw in it from back here, and we'll do some shaping, and we'll finish the other one too. It's going to be a nice looking set of arms. Can't wait. Now, I want to give you some pointers, some help with carving the arms. Carving the arms is probably the most interesting and one of the most fun parts of the whole project to me. Well, what you want to do is you want to have a nice curve on the inside. And to get that curve, let me show you how I laid this out. Guess what? It's going to be you as a compass again. You can use that all over the chair, and it's very ergonomic. All right, so I'm centering myself right here. This is about 3/16 of an inch from what was the bottom corner here. This has been kind of crowned up to that 3/16 of an inch mark. Now from the front, swinging it all the way around to the back, that's how you lay out that line on the inside of the arm. So here's the bottom, kind of in the center. There's 3/16 of an inch. And so you make that swinging, chuck the compass kind of thing right there. Then you're going to use the grinder. First, you'll want to make a 45-degree flat all the way down to that line. And there's your 45 degrees right there. Then you want to start rounding that over down to that flat. And that's how you get this surface on the inside here, big round over. Now, about halfway across the top of the arm, well, at that point, you want to start sloping away. In other words, crowning down to this line. Yes. So you're going to crown away from this center line down to there. And that gives you that nice little feeling, that ergonomic thing that fits your hand. Now, on the outside here, you want to make a big 45-degree flat. Here's the outside bottom. And you want to round this over. Well, to round it over, you want to make that big flat, that 45-degree flat, to take this off and then work the round over all the way up to the line here. Best way to do it is with the grinder and then with your tools, with your hand tools, like the rasp. So I'm going to put this in. I use this little spacer block in the back so that I can just use the front part of the vise here, and that has something to clamp to there. That kind of helps. So now I can use these tools, these hand tools. To finish up the round over and to work a line this way. Yeah. And also, can use the hand tools and the half round side of this to get in there and work that. Now, you'll want to leave a good bit of material here so that you can clean it up and make a nice transition from the bottom of the arm onto the pedestal there of the front leg. And so I have drawn out about where that'll be, and I don't want to take off too much right now because that's going to become just a nice part of it where the lines just continue to flow from one piece to another. It's called fairing in. And it's quite fun to do. So, yeah, and look at the bottom. The bottom, this is crowned up, and there's not a flat down there. Yeah, you don't want a flat there. You want it to be nice and crowned this way and round it over to the outside that way. So, have some fun with it. Love carving the arms. Here's how to find the locations for your screws. I drew a line that's perpendicular to the back of the leg here into just below the middle of the arm stem. And we want to drill a hole and have the screw go in here. Now, it's going to go into the center of this arm. Got to do it and not find it once we start sculpting, which is always a little worrisome. So be thoughtful and concerned about that. All right, so to find, we've drawn a red line, and now I'm going to put a little tick line right here and use the square. And I've got my fence set at 5/8 of an inch here. And right there is where I want to drill this hole and I want to drill it up and in. And I'm going to put this square kind of in the middle. That way I'll have something to kind of look at. On the inside here, I want this to be flush with the edge of the arm stem right here. So I'm going to hold this in place and drill my hole right there. Now, using my handy dandy, honest to goodness, no fooling around, giving myself something to aim at right there is real important. And I'm going to clamp the front of the arm. Okay, I think I'm ready to drill now. I've got something to look at that will show me where the center of this part of the arm is. I've got something to help me align it this way. I know where my hole is. It's right there. And I'm going to tighten my leg up because that's important. Now, I'm going to hold the arm in place. I'm going to line up the drill. Now I'm going to put a screw in, and usually it will push it away, push the arm away on the first try. But that time it didn't do it. It did it just right. Pulled it up nice and tight. So that's that arm. Now we'll move to the other side. But before we do, we need to get a measurement. Looks like it is it's 11 and 9/16 up to this red line right here. So now I can come over to the other side. And 11 and 9/16. Make a little mark. It's easy, so easy a child could do it. So I need to go find a child. All right. Okay, we got screws in both of them. So at this point, the chair is almost screwed up.